I love that. Okay, so when we're talking about stimming, this is probably a conversation I have honestly recurrently. And I think that that's fair. I think, and Fatima, if you want to offer, what is your question about stimming and what type of stimming? And the reason that I'm asking is I think it's helpful to know that like there's a difference between vocal stimming, humming, and there's a difference between, physical stimming, and there are potential causes for all of the above. But one of the things I will offer when it comes to stimming is that stimming is still being researched on a broad level. And I can give you a couple of different reasons that are currently being studied more. And one of them, like I can even draw a picture of this, and I think that that's helpful because sometimes when we don't understand the brain as much, and that is not anybody's fault, you used to not have to know everything about the brain in order to have a child. That has changed in our time, right? Because mine does rocking side to side when upset or during sickness or frustrated. Yeah, that's a perfect example of usually the body trying to regulate themselves. So in some cases, right, when we see high functioning individuals who are talking about stimming and they have like these mild stims, if they are verbal, they usually will express themselves that they're stimming because they're trying to express energy out. They're trying to get rid of it. And I mean, I've watched a lot of reels on this as well through the description. And so happiness is going to be a precursor for a little bit of something different than, let's just say, the area that you're describing. I have a resource coming out soon over stimming versus fidgeting. I love this. Okay, thanks, Jen. And just so everybody knows, Jen, who is our community manager, parent coach, and of course, picky eating expert, she's in here and she is also probably going to talk about the resources that we do have in the BLA sometimes, which is amazing. I love all this sharing. Oh my gosh. Vocal stimming and hand flapping. Okay, let's talk about all of it. Sure. Mine loves to be on a height and start hopping there. Yeah, so that's actually okay. I'm gonna break some of these things are actually not necessarily what I would call stimming. Some of these are sensory seeking, and those are different, but we can talk about both. And I think that it's really helpful when you know the why, you can sometimes help them with the how to regulate if that's the foundational cause. So let's talk about the rocking side to side when upset during sickness or frustrating. So, what is the one thing that's happening when you have stress? So, let's think about these are three things that cause the same outcome in the body. Okay. So, if we think about um, sickness, frustrated, I'd say that upset and frustrated will put them kind of in a similar, even though the situations are different. So, they're all causing something in the body. They're causing, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it this way. This might be really good for everybody to see. So it's a very biological response. So there are three steps. Okay, so here's what we call this is the pathway between the gut and the brain. This is also the pathway between the gut and the brain, right? There is a difference though. We notice how one is bigger. So we actually, you, myself, your children, this happens all day. We actually influx from this to this. This right here is called sympathetic nervous state. Okay. This is a stress response. This is called parasympathetic nervous state. This is a rest and digest response. Okay. So we're going to start there. So hopefully everybody's still on point with me. So when we are stressed, and I want you to not even think about your kids for a second. I want you to think about you. When something happens to you, and you know what I just realized? I just want to make sure I'm recording. I am. Okay. When something happens to you, and you all of a sudden, like, and I'm talking something big, not like and I don't mean like a car accident, but let's just say somebody hit your car in the parking lot, and you have to be somewhere at a certain time, and you're obviously going to be very late. This is going to be your default response in your body. Somebody's printing something, it's pretty funny. In your body, you're going to feel tension in your stomach, in your throat, in your chest, in your shoulders. Okay, you're going to have a physiological response to this as well. And your heart is going to go a little faster because your heart rate is actually directly related to both. Okay, this impacts your heart rate as well. And when you feel like that, you are actually lowering all of your internal biomedical pathways that normally would run. And I'm going to give you an example. People who are chronically stressed, gain weight, right? Metabolism. So metabolism is impacted. Okay. Okay. And then they're going to go into fight or flight. Their immune system drops. So they're sick all the time. Is it sounding a little familiar to your kids? Because if you think about children on the spectrum, what are the things that we know that they generally they suffer from, right? Excess illness, and so forth. So when it comes to stimming, though, because it's all going to go back to stimming in a second, and you'll know where I'm going with this. Now, when the body, okay, so now you know what happens when you're stressed. You literally have experiences where you have seen this happen, and these are the some of the systems that are impacted. When your child is stressed, they cannot differentiate whether they are running away from a tiger in the wild or whether they're just stressed because they can't, the material on their bodies feels the most uncomfortable ever because they're having a sensory processing overload. Okay, so they cannot differentiate that. The body only understands when cortisol goes up, we are in fight or flight, okay, and then we are feeling very uncomfortable. And so our goal and what we want, and our children are a little more in tune to this than we are, is to get into what we call parasympathetic nervous state, which is a rest. And oh yeah, and the other system that's impacted, this state causes constipation. Just so you know. Because so think of this as being all the way along your back, all of the wires, and I don't want to call them wires, but there's a lot of things and nerve endings that are actually leaning and reaching into. This is why you get stomach tightness. That's why you go into freeze state. That's why you get chest tightness. It's all interconnected. We are a systemic being. We cannot be broken apart. So for your children, when they are in this state, they have no way of using necessarily words, because that also, even for children who are verbal, because emotional intelligence comes later, right? Emotional intelligence, collaboration, talking about our feelings, expressing stress, looking for help for stress, understanding stress reduction techniques. But our children are very in tune to the environment naturally. And so they know what makes them go into this state naturally. And stimming is one of those things. In the case of rocking side to side, humming, vocal stimming, not necessarily like happy ones, but the ones where like, or they're upset and they're like rocking, or they're moving, they're starting to move a little more. This is your child's natural way of trying to get into a rest and digest. And rest and digest and parasympathetic means that the stress is going down and they're trying to make themselves feel safe in their body. When that happens, we get better poops, our immune system goes up, and the metabolism is working effectively. How this all pertains to stimming is that this increases stimming, this decreases stimming. Now, there is a new correlation, which again, we have to stop, in my opinion, and we need to stop breaking up the body into different. Is humming while watching a video or listening to music also considered vocal stimming? That is dependent on if they are enjoying the music, and it is linked to what I'm about to say. So I want to stop you right there. So there is a pathway in the body, and it's a loop. Okay, this is called the dopamine pathway. And so new research is showing that stimming is directly linked to an overabundance or an overexcitability of this pathway. So there are different cofactors that need to go here. These are nutrients needed to process it. If you have a child, and I'll give you another example, if you have a child that is vocal stimming the way that you're describing, and that they're fast forwarding to the same part on the same video that has the most bright colors, that are the most excitable, and then if they do this and they're on their phones more than 5 hours per day, this is usually what happens. And some of you that are experiencing this will be like, wow, it's like she lives in my house, because it's not different for anybody. It's the same pathway. Like everything is very biomedical in there. Is that oftentimes these children will actually burn out this pathway. Like, let's just say this is the direction this, like, the messaging is going. And then it goes faster and faster and faster. And then every single time that they get a hit of dopamine, which is rewatching this like one thing that's really bright and colorful, or they redo the same action, they're very repetitive in their rigidity around screens or TV or music. They're trying to rebuild this feeling. And so they need more and more of it. But over time, we're not just dopamine making machines. All right. If you've ever heard of like I'm actually reading Dopamine Nation. It's actually quite interesting. But we are not dopamine making machines. We have a limit. Dopamine used to be used for us when we were hunter gatherers, we'll say, and we needed to go and track an animal. Like when we would see a sprig that was broken, it would create a hit of dopamine. So it was very spread out throughout the day that we would have this. Is always looking at lights. Is it a form of stimming? It's a visual stim, potentially. It can be. It depends on what the purpose of the looking at lights is, but I'm just getting back to, and I will answer that as well. But when we were getting these in small amounts throughout the day, dopamine, think of it as motivation. Serotonin is feelings of safety. Now, for our kids, they are in a dopamine rich world that we continue to provide for them because we are also in it. We don't know a different way anymore. And what I mean by that is if you were a hunter gatherer and you had your dopamine hits and you were part of like the hunting party, we'll say, when you actually caught the big, big animal and you would feed, you knew you were going to be feeding, the tribe for like the winter, there would be these massive celebrations, right? And it came from not just the person who did it, who actually caught this animal, it also came from the surrounding. Like there was a burst of serotonin that was exploding. And now what we have is dopamine addictive loops with no and serotonin safety, happy feeling of being together. So unfortunately, the link that they have found is that this constant overabundance of dopamine causes is directly linked to stimming. Okay, so and that's because the body is trying to regulate itself. We're just not meant to be dopamine like powerhouses. Now, saying that, that's kind of the explanation for one. Now, if your child is stemming from happiness, um, there is a little bit of a different perspective. When we're happy and excited, we can still put ourselves into this state. It's actually a healthy state, by the way. Like I know I'm making it seem like this is really scary. We don't want to always be here, or we'd be having diarrhea all day and not feeling well either. We'd always be relaxed. We wouldn't have any motivation. We need to have what we call a good heart rate variability, if you've ever heard that. It means that this and this happens all day, back and forth, back and forth. And when we have a good amount of it throughout the day, that's actually a precursor for heart health, for how your children are motivated, that they're regulating at a level that is really, really good for the human body. So I know that that's a lot of stuff to intake, but I hope it kind of, give me a thumbs up if it kind of landed and you understand that piece of it. So these are the two areas where stimming now is being kind of, and as research continues to grow, we will learn more. When we're stimming and happy, it is going to be going back and forth. Vocal stimming to me is a precursor for speech. We do see families when the sounds start to change. And I want to offer that there's one of our members on the call today, and like her daughter, she used this very effectively. Like her daughter started doing a little bit of different sounds, and they started to like do like vowels and different sounds and started to work on the vowels of the alphabet. And now she could do all her vowels, even when prompted. So always kind of work with that, right? We need to work with that. Yeah, people assume that stimming is something that's going to be fully dietary, and it's not fully. It is going to be part of it is dietary, just so everybody knows. Our neurons are made from the foods that we eat. All of our cells are made from the foods that we eat. So if we have a nervous system that the neurons are not fully built out the way that they need to be, and they don't have enough zinc for maintenance, they don't have enough of the omega-3s to build out neuroreceptor cells or neuroreceptor sites, then you're also going to naturally have a lot more stimming because the messaging is causing stress of the world. Like basically just awareness of their environment is causing more stress. It's also why when we have elevated amounts of sensory processing that we see more stimming. We see this a lot in the program. This is completely normal. It's part of the process. We don't stop. We actually just find a way to make it so that we can work with our children to not increase their sensory processing too fast so that nobody can, survive and live this way. But also with like this push and pull of how do we get from one of this to the other. So the nervous system has to be supported both from a co-regulation space, which is why when I say we have a multidisciplinary team, we have Sangeeta and Dr. Juno and Minan, who work on this piece consistently to help families. Kristen Neff, who is the woman who wrote Horseboy, she literally studies this, and the word they use is compassion. For a lot of autism mom, that word doesn't land because we don't understand how to have compassion for ourselves, but it actually also means nervous system regulation. And so our children co-regulate with us. Children will learn faster in this state than in this state. So that's why both pieces, like strategy, I could give you strategy all day, but if your child is like this, they can't learn because they're always thinking they're running from a tiger. You cannot learn in a sympathetic nervous state.